Hello and welcome to Yesterday's Airlines once again for another release ranking video. I have to say, JC Wings are a nightmare to keep up with in terms of their releases. So these videos are becoming increasingly challenging because of all the releases that they announce in a month, only a very small portion are vaguely ready, and those models typically still don't appear on the market for 3 to 4 months after the fact. So it's really hard to keep track of what they've announced and when it comes out. I have noticed that a couple of models that were announced around January time, I think, have slipped out onto the market. Things like the Swiss 777-300ER and the All Nippon Expo 2025 777-800. So that's actually quite good time for JC, just coming out, 5 or 6 months after the announcement is, considering they were future announcements, is actually really quite impressive with JC. But then again, at the same time, you've got models like the YTO Cargo 767, which has also just had pictures appearing for it, and that model was announced in 2022, so that one's 3.5 years. That's not quite as good, is it? So it's a weird situation. But nonetheless, we have another set of announcements from JC to talk about in this video, 15 of them, and we will be getting to those in just a second. Before we do that, of course, I'm gonna tell you to chuck a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. As always, really appreciate everyone that watches, so thank you very much. Also, don't forget to check out my sponsor once again, Northeast Diecast, where you don't have to worry about extended release times because they're selling second-hand models and they're available right now, and they've got a wide range of 200 and 400 scale models, some really good stuff there on the site, and you can get 15% off using the code Yesterday's Airlines 15. So you should be using that when you're shopping at Northeast Diecast. Make sure you do Yesterday's Airlines 15 for 15% off your order. But let's get on and see what JC Wings at least is thinking about releasing in July. So in keeping with the pattern from JC Wings this year, only a third of the models which are announced this month actually have release photos of the actual model available, whereas the other 10 are all extended future announcements. So we'll start with the 5 which are available soon. And the first one of those is an Airbus A330 in Qantas Freight colours. It's VH Echo Bravo Echo. Now this is the 4th in a series of A330-200s that JC have made. They made EBV, which is the Qantas One World colours. They made EBN, which was Qantas Standard colours. And they made EBF, which was a kind of not fully completed, converted freighter version. But this one is in the full Qantas Freight scheme, and you've got the images of the model here. And what those images do illustrate is the essential weakness of the JC Wings A330-200 especially. Mostly this is related to undercarriages. This is way too short. And if you compare this to exactly the same model which has been announced by NG, or released, sorry, by NG Models already, they released it June last year, so about a year ago, then the difference between these is just chalk and cheese, and it's not complementary to the JC Wings offering. It just illustrates how much better overall the NG A330-200 is here, both in terms of the undercarriage but also in terms of other details like the angle of the wings and just broadly actually the whole model really. But it doesn't show it in great light, so this isn't looking like a stellar release, to be honest, and I don't know why you wouldn't have just picked up the one before from NG, which does look substantially better. I'm going to put this one down into gas guzzler. I think it's just the comparison here is not complementary. It really doesn't look good. The second model up is a slightly curious model, I have to say. So what we've got here is we've got a 727-100 in the Boeing house colours, and it's N327-20 again, the same aircraft that was released not long ago with the unducted fan, and that model was awesome. And if you haven't seen my video about the unducted fan models, check that out on the channel here. But this one doesn't have an unducted fan on it. It's just the same aircraft but with 2 standard 727 engines on it, and to be honest, I'm not entirely certain this ever actually flew or existed like this with just the standard engines, so that's a bit weird. And this kind of goes very much into JC Wings' tendency to want to pair up its releases, release 2 models that are very similar and split their production, and then release one a period after the first one. in this case, it doesn't make a lot of sense because I'm not entirely sure. In fact, I'm reasonably sure that it never actually did fly or operate with a pair of standard engines on the side like this. So, yeah, this one's confusing me a little. I'm not sure what to do about it. I'm going to put it into Workhorse, but yeah, this seems unnecessary because it does effectively seem like a fancy release. Third model up is an Asiana Cargo 767-300 freighter. This one is registered HL7507. They only got a relatively poor image of this one, whereas I've got better pictures of the others. I can't say it's looking particularly spectacular. Sometimes the cockpit window size on some of these JC 767s is, well, a little bit excessive, to be quite honest. And in this case, I think that is the case. This one also does look like it's accentuating some of the weaker aspects of what is quite an old 767 mold in terms of the engine pylons, the wing seam, and even though it's got rolling gear, the size of the rolling gear. So I'm not loving the look of this. There haven't been any Asiana Cargo 767-300s, so I guess that is beneficial to the ranking of this. They did make a version, or they've in March, though I'm not entirely sure it's actually out on the market again, which is obviously the pair for this one. And that was just a passenger version. So yeah, it's not thrilling me. I'm going to put this one into Workhorse because it just doesn't look that good from the images, to be quite honest, even though it is reasonably unique. Just really need to start seeing more Panda mold 767s out there, but Panda themselves just don't seem to release models anymore. Just seems to be making models for others, and I can imagine this one's way down the list anyway. The remaining pair of soon-to-be released models are both regional jets, and the fourth model here is the fifth CRJ 1000 that has been released. This one is the third of those five to wear Air Nostrum Iberia regional colours. This one has a special scheme on it, Reserva La Rioja. The previous one had a City of Gastronomy colours on it that JC released, and Gemini released the standard scheme, not surprisingly. So we've had three Air Nostrums. I like the CRJ 1000. I did review the Garuda version, SkyTeam version they made, and that was a very nice model. But these special schemes are not enormously special, but I obviously admit that there aren't a large number of liveries that you can put on a CRJ 1000 because so few of them were made and there weren't many operators. But it's not thrilling me. It's not that exciting. How many people really are collecting Iberia Regional? Probably not thousands. So not really sure the demand for this one, to be honest. I'm going to put this one in the Workhorse. It looks like it'll be fine and the model looks nice, but yeah, the special scheme is not that special. And the last of these soon-to-be made models is an Embraer 190 flying for Lufthansa Regional. The reg is DAE Charlie Delta. I actually thought this one looked pretty good and was reasonably interesting, and then I looked up and I see that I must have discussed this one last year sometimes because they released AE Charlie Alpha, effectively the same model, last year, and there's really no difference to the model. It is just the pair for this, and you can often see this with the part numbers. Last year's one was XX40124, this one's XX40125, so they were clearly made at the same time, and they've just set this one out, you know, a few months later on, which is perhaps better plan than what NG models do, where they just put them both out at the same time, but doesn't necessarily make it more interesting because last year's one probably is still available. So again, it's just a Workhorse model. There's nothing going on here, and that means that out of those five models that are going to be released soon, within the next 2 or 3 months, none of them are particularly good or particularly interesting, I have to say. So that's not spectacular. But let's move on and look at the remaining 10 models, which are all future announcements of more recent liveries or just models that they haven't got around to making yet but are announcing anyway. First one up is an Air Asia A320 Neo, and this one is wearing what is a surprisingly nice special scheme. The reg is a 9M Romeo Alpha Quebec. The scheme is called Still Winning, Still Gold, and it talks about them getting a World Airline Awards in 2025 for the world's best low-cost airline, and getting that quite regularly. So the scheme actually is nice. Obviously, I've got big reservations about the A320neo mold that they are using, but sometimes it doesn't look completely awful. But even so, I don't think I can put this any higher than Workhorse, which is where I'm going to land it, and that's probably reasonably generous. The next model up is Riyadh Air, and this one is an A320neo, and the reg is F Whiskey Whiskey Bravo Zulu, which surely isn't going to be the reg the aircraft actually ends up having. So I don't know if they'll actually make the model with that reg on it. Surely it's going to get a Saudi Arabian reg. Sorry. So that's the first question I'd have with this release. Is it already going to be obsolete by the time the JC get themselves around to releasing it? Secondly, I can't see this not being made by others. Surely Phoenix and NG models are likely to put this out, and their versions, or at least the NG one, will be significantly better. Again, this is a Neo, so its engines are going to be much too big. Yeah, I'm not thinking much of this one. In fact, I'm going to put this one down in the gas guzzler. Yeah, because I think it's going to be released by other brands, whereas I get a good feeling that AirAsia won't be. Next up, we've got another model which is going to be made by other brands. It's a new special livery for Juniao Air, B9957, and it's got this bright yellow scheme on it which is advertising Legoland. So this is the Legoland Shanghai Resort. The scheme actually looks like it's quite fun, though I'm no big fan of Lego. But I have seen, again, that NG Models have posted an image of this. They haven't announced it yet, but I saw on WeChat that they posted an image, so I get the feeling that they will be releasing it for sure, and so there's going to be some competition. Now, this one's a CEO, not a Neo, so it's going to be better on the JC mold, but it's not going to be as good as the NG version, let's be honest. So the fact this has got such a long lead time to get produced, the fact that the mold is just a cone of okay, is gonna suggest that this is just a workhorse model, because there are going to be better versions out, I think, before. Moving into some A330s, and the subject material is a little more interesting. We've first up got a Bellavia A330-200 EW588PD. Now, Bellavia hasn't got a lot of releases in 400 scale. This will be the fifth. And obviously Belarus, where the airline is from, is a country which is assisting Russia with their war in Ukraine and so on and so forth, and has got sanctions against it. So they shouldn't even have this A330. I believe they got them through some third parties, slightly sneakily. But ignoring all of that, it's quite an interesting choice for a release, and the livery actually is really quite nice. JC have already made several 737 MAX 8s in the colours of Bellavia, and even though I slammed their A330 mould earlier on with the Qantas, this one is not a model I necessarily foresee lots of other brands making. It's possible Phoenix might make it, but I'm not sure. And this one is actually quite an interesting choice. So, despite the mould here, I'm tempted to slip this one up into high flyer, which it probably doesn't deserve, but I'm going to do that anyway, and that will make it the first high flyer of this video. The second A330 this month is very colourful, and if it wasn't for having Manchester United slapped all over the front of it, then I'd probably quite like it. It is a Malaysia Airlines 330-300 9M Mike Tango Lima is the reg. It's got a really nice Negaraku style back end of the Malaysia scheme, but then you've got this official commercial airline partner chunk at the front for Man United. Yeah, I'm English. I'm very partisan when it comes to football, and I do not support Manchester United. So that really puts this one down. Not doing anything for me. I have to say that the JC A330 does look sometimes a bit better than the 200. The 300, sorry, looks better than the 200, and that's because being longer, the shortness of the gear is not quite as prevalent and obvious. And in fact, they released not too long ago a Garuda with a very nice special scheme. And if it wasn't for the fact that NG had made it, then you'd be going, wow, this is looks very good. They've done a good job. So it's just the shame that the undercarriage is so low. But regardless of all that, it's got Manchester United. I'm just going to put it into workhorse. And to be honest, considering my views on Man United, that is generous. The next model is an A340-600 China Eastern Sky Team B6053. Now, JC announced a A340-600 in the Shanghai Expo colours towards the end of last year, and there was even a picture associated with it, and I am certain that picture is not of the model they're releasing, because as far as I'm aware, JC only have one A340-600 mould, and it's got a gigantic seam on it. It's a very old mould, and that was the one that's been used in 2022 for a Maleth Aero and Convaesa, and also an Airbus House Colours in 2020. So I am not expecting this to be a seamless mould. I'm expecting this to be the seamed mould, and that marks it down quite substantially. In addition, Phoenix have released this exact model not very long ago, just before Christmas. I bought it, and it was much better than this is going to be, because the Phoenix A340-600 is much, much nicer. So, yeah, that one is not doing anything for me at all. I'm just going to put it into workhorse. It could easily be a gas guzzler, but I think I'll put it into workhorse until we see kind of what it looks like. Last Airbus of this set is Scandinavian. It's SAS. It's A350-900. SE Romeo Sierra Foxtrot is the reg. There have been 4 previous SAS A350s, but all of those have been with the Star Alliance logo on the front of them. And nowadays, SAS is no longer in Star Alliance. It has moved to SkyTeam because of change of ownership. So this one will have the SkyTeam logo at the front, not the Star Alliance. And I guess if you're a SAS collector, then that is probably enough to make you want to buy it. So it is reasonably unique, and it wouldn't surprise me if other brands overlook this small difference and don't release it again. So assuming they don't, then this one has quite a lot of collectability for you Scandinavian collectors. I'm not a big fan of the JC Gemini A350. It's not disastrous though. I'm going to put this one up in High Flyer again, but again, it's kind of hovering around that workhorse High Flyer dividing line. If it didn't have the SkyTeam logo, then it would just be down in the workhorse, but with the SkyTeam logo, maybe just a little bit higher. So that just leaves us with 3 models to discuss from this future group, and every month JC has, to its credit, been slipping in the odd, slightly more classic model. And this month's classic model is a Boeing 757-200, and it is DABN Tango in the Condor colours, the yellow belly Condor colours, before they were ruined by Thomas Cook. So this one is a superb 757 choice. It has never been made before in 400 scale by anybody. There have been previous Condor 75s, but not in this scheme. In fact, not in any of the really classic schemes from the 90s. So this one is one that I'm really pleased about. Now, obviously, I'd much prefer this if it were on the NG mould, but the updated JC Gemini 757 is no disaster. It's still got a seam, but it's reasonably well hidden. Some of the printing or the cockpit windows and things isn't always ideal, but I suspect this one should be pretty nice, and in fact this one should be very nice, and it will be a model that I am acquiring, assuming I live long enough for it to be released. But try not to be snarky about it. It is a really good choice, and hopefully it'll only be 4 or 5 months before they get it out, and not 2 or 3 years. Really good, super nice, and much more diverse than most of the rest of this set here. I'm going to put this one up into Supersonic. The mold probably doesn't quite deserve a Supersonic, but beggars can't be choosers. This year so far has not been spectacular in terms of diversity of 400 scale models, and when you get the odd, slightly more diverse release, I think we should give them some plaudits. And that leaves a pair of 777-300s as the final pair of releases. The first one up is the sort of model which usually I'd look at and just go, blah, but actually is slightly better than I first thought. It's a Japan Airlines JA731 J. And now this aircraft has apparently just been retired, and it's only the second or third 777-300ER that JAL have retired. I think it was 20 years old, the aircraft, or something along those lines, so it wasn't young. It wasn't enormously old though. There's nothing else special about it, as from what I can see. It's wearing the current standard, completely bland JAL livery, though it does look, the picture that I've seen, it makes it look quite clean and nice. I've spoken before about my just distaste for the font and the lack of colour on the fuselage. But at the same time, looking through releases, there actually have been almost none that have been made using a decent mould and this colour scheme. There has been a D'Agostini version for the JAL collection in 2020, and then I think there may have been a Phoenix version as well in 2018 perhaps. But really, there's not been much made at all. This is actually a surprising miss for NG and AV400. So yeah, actually another good selection from JC Wings, and obviously on a really good mould because their 777 is very nice. So this one I think actually probably does deserve high flyer and is a good choice, even though I don't like the livery very much. The last model of the month, not as exciting because it's already been announced by two others already. It's A7 Bed. It's the Qatar Airways Champions League scheme, which has been announced already by Phoenix and also by NG Models. You would expect that by the time this JC version is released, you would have probably bought one of the others, assuming that you want it that badly. So yeah, it's not going to be that much better that I think it's worth waiting for on the JC mould, though it might be slightly better than the other two. It won't be by an enormous margin, so I'm going to put them down into workhorse. I say the word Qatar way too often on these videos. And that is the last model of this set. So I should also mention that JAL 777 and the Qatar both also have flaps down versions coming as well, so you can get those, and that might add a little extra playability and such, but I don't typically split them out in the videos here. Looking across this set from JC Wings, it is very reminiscent of the previous sets that they've put out this month. Most of the models that are available soon are not very interesting. Some of the models which are going to be made in the future are going to be made better by other brands before the JC Wings releases get out. And then you've got a small subset of models. In this case, I think the Belavia, the SAS, the Condor, and that JAL 777 that probably won't get made by another brand and are slightly more interesting than the rest and therefore get higher scores, even though broadly out of all of the models in this set, the only one with a top class mould, or the only ones with top class moulds are the CRJ 1000 and the 777s, and everything else has got pretty ordinary casting going on there. So it's not a spectacularly good set from JC Wings at all. I still hold out some hope that they're going to be producing some more interesting things in the future. I would love to be seeing some more Antonovs. I'd love to be seeing some more Ilyushins. I'd love to be seeing some more regional types and some of the classic molds. And hopefully we will see some of those at some point. But for now, this is what they're putting out. And as you can see, only one model's getting supersonic, and there are only 2 or 3 high flyers. So it's not a great month. And most of those models you're going to have to wait a long time for. Okay guys, well I hope you've enjoyed this quick review of JC Wings July announcements. Keep an eye out for the channel because I'm producing a lot more video content than I used to. But for now, thank you very much. It's goodbye from me.